Want to welcome you to People Management 101 with the director of our Los Alamos Center, Sandy Jones. And without further ado, I'll turn it over to you, Sandy.
Okay, thank you, Christopher. Welcome to our class today. It's People Management 101, how to keep employees and yourself productive and satisfied. And I've basically compiled some tips from my years as a frontline supervisor, manager, and director to help new supervisors or perhaps business owners who are new, who've never supervised before. So I'm just kind of sharing what I've learned in my time in supervision. I have managed in both a union and a non-union environment, both academic institutions and for-profit institutions. Christopher, I'm not able, oh, there it is. Sorry, okay. First of all, before we get into the content of the class, just a reminder about the Healthy Workplaces Act of 2021. Just went into effect July 1st. And no matter what type of organization you have, if you have employees, you need to have that poster up in your workplace. Whether you have a nanny that works out of your home or you're a nonprofit, that poster has to be visible. If it is not, that's not complying with the law. So you want to be sure and observe those rules. If you need additional information, you can go to the New Mexico Department of Workforce Solutions. And I have the website here. And you can also just Google, New Mexico paid sick leave, and they'll pop up in the Google search. But I strongly recommend you read through their FAQ and all the information they provide about how they're going to implement that law. Okay, so all of the information I'm sharing today, some of these I'm going to talk about some scenarios, and these are real things I have overheard. In most of the cases, these are actual things I've experienced or heard, and that's why I want to share it with you. We will have opportunities where I will share with you how I would address the situation. And then I'll ask you to raise your hand if you would like to share how you think you would be comfortable addressing the situation. So let's begin. My job wouldn't be so bad if it weren't for my boss. She's always trying to micromanage me. Or the job's okay, but it's kind of boring. I wish my boss trusted me more and gave me something challenging to do. And lastly, I've worked for Bob for 3 years and I've never gotten a raise, even though I've done a great job. But Jenny's late every day and she's paid the same as me. So I just voiced some employee comments, and now I'm going to voice some owner comments. I thought when I started this business, I'd be able to have at least some time away, but every time I leave, even for half a day, some crisis comes up and I have to run back into the office. My people are always asking for more money. What do they think? I'm a millionaire? I value my employees, but I can't pay them top dollar. I just don't have it. My best roofer is continually late. No matter what I try, I can't get him to the job site on time. Or I just can't find enough employees to fill my open positions. So you may have also heard this said, I don't have time to manage my people. I'm just too busy. Or you may have felt like that because you have a heavy workload. Managing people is hard work. Because people, everybody's different. They have their own quirks, their own motivations. So it's one of the most difficult management tasks. You can manage all the other resources pretty easily, but managing people is hard. Proper management of people is just as important as landing a contract or making a big sale. A problem, a people problem, when ignored, is a problem that will grow. And it can actually ripple through your whole business and affect your business in a very negative way. And a wise manager once told me, Sandy, your people will get your attention one way or another. It's up to you if it's positive or negative attention. So how do we manage folks? How do we do a good job of that? Step one, stay in touch with your employees. Know what's going on around you. Be aware. No matter how many frontline employees you have, you can take the time to speak with them one-to-one. I strongly encourage that you hold meetings with people anywhere from monthly to quarterly, depending on the number of staff you have. You will learn things about how departments are functioning. You will learn about your customers, what your customers are asking your employees for. Your frontline employees are a font of information for your business and can really help you to decide maybe to add a whole nother suite of services or products to your product and service offerings. So I strongly encourage you, for both the sake of the business and for the sake of the business relationship between you and your employees, to meet with everybody at least quarterly if you can. So step two is listening. And here's something we don't always think about when we're working in our businesses. We have a relationship with our employees. And just like any relationship, it needs to be built upon trust, and it needs to be nurtured. I would encourage you to listen to your employees. If you employ family members as part of your overall business, they should be treated like everyone else, no worse and no better. Employees need to see that you are being fair and honest with everybody. That will help them to trust you. And again, one of my managers shared this with me, how important it is to let your employees start each day fresh. In other words, let's say they were late yesterday and you immediately address the situation, because we don't let problems fester. We sit down, have a quick chat about, is there something happening, what that's causing you to be late? We addressed it yesterday. So today it's just a fresh start. We don't have the same conversation again and again and again. So I advise you to forgive yesterday's transgression and just move on and get the work done. So here's something a boss might say: my employees keep leaving after a few months. Well, there could be a few reasons for that. So step three, be creative. During your one-to-one meetings, listen for ways that you can enrich the employee's job. And by enriching a job, I don't mean moving them into a different position. I mean assigning them a project. Give something that they and they alone can manage. An engaged employee is so much more productive than someone who just really is not engaged in the work. Also, consider providing incentives to employees who bring in new business. Really, in a small business, everybody can be a salesman for the business. So I would encourage you to consider that. And the second point on this slide, if you look at the picture, there could be a problem in the workplace that you're not aware of that's causing people to leave every few months. That's why exit interviews are so useful, because you can find out why people are leaving. They might not feel comfortable telling you but they might be willing to answer on paper, part of why they wanted to leave the company. But brace yourself. It's possible that the problem is you, especially if you're like this fellow, jumping on the table and screaming and pointing in someone's face. That's obviously not how I would suggest anyone ever handle an employee interaction. I thought when I started this business, I'd be able to have some time away. Okay, so we know that guy, he wants to leave the business, but every time he leaves, he has to come rushing back. Well, step 4 that you can take is to trust your people and ask yourself, do my employees need more authority to make decisions? Are they afraid to make decisions? How do I handle it when they make the wrong decision or maybe a different decision than I would have made? It can be rewarding to handle everything yourself and to say to your customers, I'll take care of it. Don't you worry, I'll take care of it. But if you take care of everything, you are going to limit how big your business can grow to be. You can't scale yourself any larger than you are. So you're going to want your employees to be able to handle things the way you handle them. As long as you have adequate financial protections in place, it should be safe to train someone to do some or all of your tasks that you do as the owner or supervisor. Thirdly, be prepared for the unexpected. What happens if you go into the hospital? Okay, if you look at the picture, accidents happen all the time. They happen on the road, they happen in the workplace. Unfortunately, the pandemic has taught us that we don't know what's around the next corner. So we need to be prepared as good business people. And that's where the final bullet on this slide comes in, cross-training. Now, cross-training goes in and out of favor in management literature, but it's one of those things that if you invest in it up front, it will pay dividends. If you're a small shop and you have one customer rep, you can't go a day without somebody dealing with customers. So you have to have backups. And I would encourage you really to have a backup for every position in your shop. And if you're out, this is where trusting your employees comes in. If you have to be out of, say you're in the hospital for a month, you can't have the business just come to a screeching halt. It has to go on. So your employees have to feel that they're empowered and they understand what they need to do to keep the business going. Step 5, accountability. Okay, so this fella has a roofer who's continually late. No matter what they try, they can't get him or her to show up at the job site on time. Well, that quote reveals to me that they have not been addressing the issue immediately, first of all. So they haven't been doing something they should have been doing. But as an owner or a supervisor, we need to set the tone for attendance for all of our employees. When it comes to being on time, they are going to watch you. What you do, they will do. If they know that that's important to you, then they will show up on time. And if they don't, and you address it promptly, you will nip that in the bud, especially with new employees. Right from the beginning, it's important to set the expectation of, hey, I'm here. I'm always here on time every day for work, and that's what I expect of everybody else too. During your one-to-one meetings with your employees, you can discuss attendance and how important it is to the company. Now, if you're in a meeting with someone who shows up early every day, rain or shine, oh, for goodness sake, praise them. Let them know how much you appreciate their effort and how they prioritize coming to work on time. People need to hear that. that you'd be surprised at how many people never hear any kind of positive feedback. And this is sort of related to this subject. Performance reviews should never surprise an employee. If they're surprised, then I'm sorry, but you've done something wrong. If an employee has been doing something incorrectly, then you as their supervisor should be holding corrective action meetings with them. Let them know how to fix the problem. Or if it's a behavior problem, give them the opportunity to turn that around and say, I need you here. You can't be drinking on the job, or whatever the situation is. But it's really important that you give feedback throughout the year. Don't wait to do corrective action. It hurts the business and it really doesn't help anybody. Step 6, pay. Oh, and this is the owner who says, my people always want more money. I value them, but I can't pay top dollar. I don't have it. Well, first of all, we need to know what market rates are in our area for the work our people do. Because even the happiest employee can be lured away if they can double their pay in the same position. And if they can double their pay doing the same work somewhere about the same size as your company, you may not be paying market rate. So try to really stay aware of what's being offered in your community. Your employees, everybody has to pay rent or mortgage, utilities. So be fair with your compensation and honest with yourself about what you need to provide to your employees. Know what entry-level folks are being paid in your area. Especially stay alert to what customer representatives are making. Customer reps are they are the face of your company. I mean, I know you know this, but they really can make or break your company, because a good relationship with customers is just worth gold. And of course, nobody can compete with a Fortune 500 or a national laboratory when it comes to pay. We know that, but they can't be as responsive to employees as you can be. They can't be as flexible. They cannot create the same business culture that you have. If you have a fun work environment where people are into their job, they're into the mission of the organization, that makes a difference. And they're not going to find that at a big entity usually. So that's your competitive edge as a small employer. I just can't find enough employees to fill my open positions. This is a real concern, and I don't want to sound like I'm minimizing it. It's difficult right now. We've got a great economy as far as jobs go. And in some communities, there's less than 2% unemployment. So that means we have to be creative in constructing our job descriptions. And when we think about who we want to hire, you may have a picture in your mind of the perfect employee, but honestly, that perfect employee doesn't exist. And sometimes it's a bias that we just have. I think they call it an unconscious bias. Maybe we're not even aware of it. But one of the things we can do is to look at the job and say, is this a job someone who's differently abled, or let's say they have a developmental disability, or perhaps they're deaf or in a wheelchair? Think about, can that job be done by someone who has these, I guess you could say, impairments or disabilities? Because a lot of times jobs can be done by people who are developmentally disabled if they're structured properly and properly supervised. Also, you can consider, do I really need to have a 4-year degree? Or do I need to hire someone with a 4-year degree for this job? Sometimes, yes, you do, but many times you don't. I also would encourage you to share your job openings with your church or your religious leader, all of your online communities. I mean, paper the town with your information. You want everybody to know that you have a job opening. The other thing is, and this is really the most important thing, make sure your company is a good place to work. If you can do that, you will spend a lot less time filling vacancies and having to hire new people, at least replacement employees. You can also offer your employees a referral fee for anyone that gets hired and who stays. But really the bottom line, when people like the company they work for, they tell everybody about it. They'll try to get their friends hired because it's a great job. They love their job. So think about all these, possibilities. There's more than one way to go after this problem of finding employees. Obviously, we hiring retention bonuses, participate in all job fairs. Basically put yourself in the position of almost always accepting applications. Do succession planning as you grow. That's at some point you may want to step away from the business and do something else. Whether you keep owning it, if you decide that you want to continue to own it, you're going to need somebody to run it day to day. So that's why we do succession planning. We think about the future and our long-term plans. Okay, so now we're going to get into some employee situations. I've worked for Bob for 3 years and I've never gotten a raise, even though I've always come through for him. But Jenny's late every day and she's paid the same as me. If this employee is key to your business, or you just want to keep them in their position because it's a tough hiring environment, then you need to address this right away. This cannot wait. I mean, when you hear it, you think about it and you jump on it. I'm going to share with you how I would address this because I wouldn't necessarily want someone to know that I overheard a conversation. But once you become aware of this employee's angst over the situation, it needs to be addressed. I would say something like, Paul, I was going over some of our records yesterday, and I noticed you've been making the same pay since you started here 3 years ago when we were struggling. I'm going to pay you a $100 bonus this week as a thank you. So maybe you and your family can go out to dinner, but you'll be getting a raise to $18 per hour. Now that we've grown as a company, we'll conduct annual performance reviews. And of course, if he pipes in about Jenny being late every day, I say, don't worry, I'll take care of that. And then you drop it. You don't get into a whole conversation about Jenny. So I'm going to ask those of you in attendance, how would you approach this problem? Go ahead and raise your hand if you want to share how you would address this.
While we wait for some hands, Sandy, there was a question from Barbara.
Yes.
And it says, what if I didn't nip it in the bud and now an employee is constantly late?
Just address it now. Yeah, I mean, it's always best to do it immediately, but you could have a conversation like, I've noticed this has been happening repeatedly and we can't have that. I really need you to do X, Y, or Z, and I'm counting on you to turn this around. That's the kind of conversation I would have. But yeah, sometimes, none of us are perfect. We slip, but our goal is to address problems right away. That's a good question. Anyone else?
There's a follow-up. Barbara says, thanks. We've had several conversations, but they don't change on, and they're vital to the company.
Okay. In that situation, they're not changing. I would definitely have someone else who can do the same job, either hired or trained to do the job they're doing. And then unfortunately, I would start the process of whatever if you have an HR policy in place, you have to adhere to that process. So if you have 2 write-ups before you dismiss someone, then go ahead and document that you've had the conversation, and if they say they will turn things around, put that in your documentation and just file it away. And if they don't turn it around, then you have another conversation and you document that. You don't have to have them sign it. That is not necessary, but it might be good to have some kind of a timestamp, maybe an email to yourself that lays out the conversation, and put that in your files and keep that for the unfortunate time when you have to let them go.
Perfect. And please feel free to raise your hands if you want to give some input, and I'll be.
Yeah, we want to hear how you would address it. But maybe you'll feel more comfortable as we continue. I'll go on to the next scenario.
Well, Sandy, I'll tell you, as an Audi employee, I used to one of my first jobs, I would arrive late, and the lady who was my supervisor was very strict about the time, and she had a huge clock on the wall, and I hid the clock, and I was never late again.
You hid the clock?
Well, first I set it back 10 minutes. Then I hit it.
Wow, Christopher. Oh my goodness, you would be a real challenge.
So Barbara, put the clock away, and then you won't notice when they're late.
Okay, I'm gonna leave that there. All right, we'll go on to our next slide. All right, this might be a little easier. The job's okay, but it's kind of boring. I wish my boss trusted me more and gave me something challenging to do. Okay, so this is one of the nicer conversations you can have with someone. Jose, I noticed you finish your tasks really quickly and efficiently. You do such a great job. I really appreciate you. If you ever find yourself finished with your normal queue of work, I have some neat projects I could really use your help on if you'd be interested. Now, somebody that wants more challenge is going to jump at this chance, because this is somebody that is right there for the job. They want to do a good job and maybe even want to grow within your company. So that's how I would approach this situation. Again, any brave souls who want to raise their hands and share how they would address it? I think we have a quiet group today. Okay, that's fine if you don't feel comfortable answering this one. Sometimes this can be evidence that someone is underemployed. Maybe they just wanted a foot in the door and they're hoping to be promoted. Oh, someone raised their hand. Yes, Brittany, would you like to share with us?
Yeah, I'll play. Something that we have done in the past is asking employees if there's a hidden talent or a skill that they have that is being underutilized that they feel that they could bring to the company.
Excellent. That is terrific. Because a lot of times you don't know. I mean, you wouldn't know they had that skill. Yeah, that's an excellent idea. Anyone else? Christopher, I thought there was one other person that raised their hand.
Would you raise your hands for me again? I just lowered hands and I might have lowered your hand by accident. No, I don't see anybody.
Okay, well, let's continue then. My job wouldn't be so bad if it weren't for my boss. She's always trying to micromanage me. Okay, well, that is a really loaded statement there. I would address this with the first paragraph, and maybe the second paragraph you're seeing would be appropriate, maybe not. I would say something along the lines of, "Hi, Levon, I noticed you seem a bit irritated when I asked to see your work. Is there a problem?" And then I would wait for Levon to answer. "I can understand why you might feel that way. That's why I want you to know that my job is to make sure things are done right." And then I would continue and say, "Everyone here has someone who checks their work. And the ultimate quality control check is our customer. So we want to catch mistakes before they ever reach a customer. So I hope you understand when I ask to see your work, that is not a personal statement about you. That is just our process for checking work. My work is checked as well as yours." Now, the reason, okay, and now I'm not talking to Levon. The reason I say it that way is because Levon has a bit of an attitude, and I don't want to apologize for checking work. That's my job. And I want Levon to know that I heard your sassiness, when I came to check your work, and that is not okay. So the way to address that, in my opinion, is to be subtle and to just let him know, "Hey, I heard your irritation," but not to really engage and get into an emotional discussion. I would keep it simple and sweet. The job, we're all double checked. The customer is the ultimate check. So, but we don't want the customer to have a quality problem. So we're going to check our quality before it gets to the customer. That's how I would address that. Anyone else want to share how they would? Anyone want to raise their hand? Yes, Brittany.
I actually had this happen to me not too long ago, and it just came out because of just a conversation that I was having. And I think maybe I called myself out on it a little bit. I guess I don't really have an answer on how to handle it other than just be upfront and honest. For me, I sort of processed it and figured out that it came from the experience of having people that were not qualified. And that whole thing that you talked about having people that can fill certain positions and things. I was so used to doing things by myself that here I have this qualified person, but I still feel like I'm doing this position, but it's really just a matter of yourself needing to let go sometimes also.
That's a good point. You don't want to hover over employees. Nobody wants that. And in fact, you can get into serious issues if your employees unionize, and you'll have grievance after grievance written if they feel you're hovering or micromanaging them. But the important thing is I think is to frame it as, I'm part of our quality control here. I would ascribe the double checking as part of a quality check. And I think that's completely understandable in a business, especially a small place. You just can't afford for customers to receive errors. So, but thank you, Brittany. Anyone else have anything to share on that? And seeing none, we will proceed. My best salesman, Melissa, strolls into the office an hour late. It really bugs me, and the other office employees don't appreciate it either. Okay, so this is an owner or supervisor. Again, address it when it happens. Don't address it in front of other employees, please. And I never advocate for a scolding tone. I prefer more of a conversational, unemotional tone in these kinds of conversations. Good morning, Melissa. Can I see you for a minute? And then away from everybody. I noticed you seem to be getting, you were late today. Is something going on that prevented you from arriving on time? And maybe they'll say, yeah, I had a flat tire, or my babysitter was late. Then, I would respond with, well, I know that can be challenging to deal with. Is there a way you can ensure that you can arrive on time? Would you like to talk through some options or ideas with me? And I would give them that chance to kind of brainstorm, how can I deal with this problem? Maybe Melissa has a problem that she feels overwhelmed by. Maybe she needs a different work schedule or a different position in the company. If she's a good employee, I'm going to work with her and really try and solve the problem. And I would say something along the lines of, I really need everyone here on time every day. Does that make sense? Great, let's see if we can be on time the rest of the week. And then I would leave it, okay? Because I'm going to see, Melissa and I are going to see each other all day long. So we want to keep the mood positive, and we want to go on. She knows now that it's important for her to get here on time, that I actually spoke to her about it. So she's going to try to figure out how to get here on time now. So that's how I would approach the timeliness issue. I would talk about it a lot. I wouldn't harp on it. But I mean, in general group meetings, I would say, hey, I appreciate you guys, doing such a great job, showing up on time. Thank you so much. Everything positive. You never want to correct an employee in front of everyone else unless it's something ridiculous, like someone telling a racist joke in a group of people and you're there. Address it right away. Say, no, we do not do that here. That is disrespectful, and I don't ever want to hear anything like that again. And then you leave it. Or a sexually harassing comment. Wow, you look really great in those pants. No, that's not the way to give a compliment. Anyone else want to share how they would address tardiness? Would you like to raise your hand? And Christopher, I see we have some Q&A. Is that related to this?
One's just a comment. Rita says, sorry, nobody has a mic on their computer. And Brittany, I'm not sure how you could stop the transcript on my end. It's under live transcript, show or hide subtitle. So I'll work on that in the background, see if we could hide those.
Okay, thank you, Christopher. And sorry about that. Okay, so I guess hopefully you've heard my approach to management that has worked really well for me. To do your best to practice empathy and some forgiveness at work. I don't think we really talk about that a lot, but it's so helpful when you're dealing with human beings. And here are some general quotes we've probably all heard. Before you judge a man, walk a mile in his shoes. Well, that's empathy. Think about what's happening. How can I be a help to this person? Be tolerant with others and strict with yourself. That quote, be tolerant with others, that doesn't mean to tolerate bad behavior or poor work quality or poor work habits. But it means, to me, it means extend a bit of grace, but always be strict with yourself. Be the leader, be the employee in the business that people can look to and model their behavior. The only man who never makes mistakes is the man who never does anything. Well, that is so true. And we also need to provide kind of a safe workplace where people can make a mistake and they don't get screamed at. It's like, okay, you made a mistake, we can recover. You don't want to have an environment where people are afraid to tell you they made a mistake, because everybody makes mistakes from time to time. So encourage your direct reports that they can come to you and just let me know what happened. I want to know before the whole world knows, that kind of thing. And then the last bullet point on this is treat your employees the way you want them to treat your best customers. This has so much value right there. I don't know if you've ever experienced poor customer service. It really puts you off the business. And if you're treating your employees well, they will move heaven and earth for your customers. I've seen it time and again. So in summary, being respectful and considerate, those are free things you can do every day. Doesn't cost you a penny, doesn't cost you authority. Most employees want to do a good job. Show them that you want them to succeed. Tell them that you want them to succeed, because they don't always know that. Again, I'm sorry to harp on this, but address problems right away. If you forget everything else, remember, address problems right away. Know your people. Show you value them. Tell them you value them. Show grace and forgiveness. I don't know about you, but I have had managers show me some grace and some forgiveness. Lead by example. And really, if you're the owner of a small company, unless you want to work until you drop, it's so important to trust your people, train them, and then delegate authority to them. Watch and see how they perform. Is this your workplace? Are people happy to come in? If not, think about what you can do to make the work environment more positive. It doesn't have to be, goofing off or something like that. You can have a positive work environment and still accomplish all your goals. And lastly, in conclusion, most of these issues we've discussed, they're all about communication and trust. When you say you're going to do something, do it. That helps your people to trust you, and you're building that relationship. Think of yourself as always building the relationship with your employees. Secondly, allow yourself to become the great boss you want to be. Take the time and do it right. You can set the tone for your people to have a great day or a lousy day. And I can't tell you the number of times I have seen where a supervisor will come in a terrible mood, and it just reverberates through the whole group. And for those employees, that supervisor's the company. So, that supervisor is creating a bad situation for all of those people, and it's unnecessary. Leave your cares at the door if at all possible. And when you have to confront a difficult situation, really try to pull the emotion out of it, pull your feelings of disappointment out of the situation. Because as a supervisor, we do get disappointed sometimes in our employees. It happens. And the last thing I want to leave you with today, before we take any questions, it sounds like hyperbole, but I promise you this is true. You can literally change lives by being a great an inspiring boss. I've seen it over and over again in my career. So I just want to thank you for your time and attention. I hope you got some useful ideas from today. I may have mentioned earlier, but my favorite management book, and I've read so many of them, is The 1 Minute Manager by Ken Blanchard. It's all about addressing things quickly, delegate authority, and, watch what happens. If you want more training, you can go to our website, and it's all no cost. Some of them are pre-recorded, but we offer training on any number of topics that could be useful to you. And your local SBDC is there to listen and to help you. So I thank you. And Christopher, I don't know if there are any questions in the chat.
Nothing in the Q&A yet, but the attendees are welcome to raise their hand if they'd like to speak to a question.
Okay.
While we wait for a question, Sandy, I put a link into the chat. It's for ONET Online. Can I show the group ONET Online real fast?
Yes, I'll stop sharing.
Okay, let me share. And it's onetonline.org. And if you're looking for, if you need help writing a job description, or you want to see what the going rate is for a certain position, you could type in a keyword here, like, I don't know, maybe somebody wants to chat over a type of job position. Like
Maybe an administrative assistant.
Legal secretaries and administrative assistants. And here's some sample tasks, 5 of 14. So they give you a lot of information. Some skills you need, work activities, job zone, training, credentials, skills, knowledge, education. But my favorite part of it is the wages and employment trends. So it says the median wages is $22.94 hourly, but then you could look in your state. So let's do New Mexico. Or you could even put in a zip code. And you could see what the hourly rate or the annual rate is in New Mexico for that position.
Yeah, that's very useful.
And it's a free tool for you, and it's the Department of Economic Development Department uses these descriptions and the job zone to award JTIP funds to people. So the higher job zone the position is, the more JTIP funds it would qualify for. So let me stop share. I'll let me see what's in the Q&A. So somebody asked, how do you deal with internal drama between employees?
Oh, that's an excellent question. I had that happen several years ago. I had 2 really good employees who hated each other. I mean, just hated each other. And we had a small group, and we were on a 24/7 rotation where people would work 12 hours together. And how I handled it, I sat them both down. And basically, I talked to them about the work. Do you think Deborah does a good job? Oh, yeah, Deborah does a great job. So I had them talk about each other and the quality of work, because I knew they both liked that about each other and they respected that. So I would suggest you try and find some common ground that they both have. But that helped to defuse the situation, because they were refusing to work together. And that just wasn't an option. They had to work together. But it helped to hear the other person say, Robert does a great job. I have no problem with the work he does. And And the relationship did get better. It may not work in every situation, but you could also encourage people to communicate just about the work in a polite way, in a respectful way. And you may have one person who needs a little more coaching than the other. And those are things you can pick up on as you are around the two workers. That would be my recommendation, to sit them down and just hash it out, talk it out, because it's, just like we said, it's just going to grow. And you say, I need both of you. I need both of you in here doing a good job. And we can't have this drama. We need to just focus on the work and forget about, personal feelings and side issues. Let's just focus on our work and do a good job. That's what I would do.
Perfect. Next question is from Bailey. Bailey asks, any guidance on how to handle HWA abuse? That is to say, the employee who uses their sick pay as soon as it's available in tiny increments with little or no notice, which makes scheduling difficult. Is there an effective way to address these types of issues that meets the requirements of the HWA?
Well, one thing is to look at your HR policy, your policy book. You have to adhere to whatever you allow. And if you say, in order to take paid sick leave, you have to do X, Y, or Z, then you can adhere to that policy as long as it doesn't violate the law. If you have a question about whether or not your policy is in line with the new law, I would suggest you have an attorney review it, even if you're a small place, because these legal issues can really cripple a business. So it's much better to get that legal advice up front rather than having an infraction that someone can sue you about, etc. But I'm not an attorney. You can read through the legislation on the DWS site. And you have to allow them to take it if they're ill. But I think there are some requirements in that legislation. So I would advise you to look at that and see what your options are. Create an HR policy that is in line with the legislation, have it reviewed by a legal expert, and then implement it. As long as you adhere to your policy, and it's legally in line with the Healthy Workplaces Act, then you should be fine.
Perfect. The next question comes from David. David asks, I'm self-employed but looking to hire soon. I'm worried about handling HR issues without becoming an HR expert. How do small shops handle these challenges? Learning on the job is important, but I don't want to get blindsided. Yeah.
I would advise you, David, to go seek out help from your local SBDC. I know in our office, we help people. We give them a sample HR policy manual. We talk about what you need to do when you hire someone. There are several things to consider, including Healthy Workplaces Act. We do a cash flow projection. Can I afford to hire someone? How much more business will I get if I hire someone? Those are all decisions, that cash flow management can help you to make. But no, you don't have to be an HR expert. You need good common sense. And if you go see your SBDC, they can counsel you through the steps to take when you hire, because there are steps you need to take. You need to contact, I think, Department of Workforce Solutions. There's like a whole list of things to do. You're going to have your posters, your federal employment posters up on the walls. But it's all doable. I don't want to, discourage you from hiring. That's what we want. That's going to grow your business, is to hire more people. You just need to make sure you comply. And as you hire, once you get up to 2 employees plus yourself, that's where workers' compensation comes in. So if you're only hiring 1 more person, you're still under that threshold. But once you get to 3, you have to have workers' comp insurance. And it's, again, it's just another step in the process. It's all doable.
Perfect, thank you. And then we have a question. How do you deal with trying to cross-train someone that only wants to learn it selectively?
Can you say that again, Christopher?
Sure. How do you deal with trying to cross-train someone that only wants to learn it selectively?
So they can leave?
No, selectively. They only want to learn pieces of it, but they're trying to cross-train.
Oh, well, no, that's not an option. When you're cross-training, you're learning to back up another role. So, I mean, that's an expectation. We all pull together and we all help out, especially if you're a small shop. You know, that's kind of the fun of working in a smaller business, is you get to wear a lot of hats. Today I get to be the salesman. Today I get to be customer rep, whatever. Yeah, they need to learn what you tell them is they're going to be learning today. Selective learning is not an option. That would be my answer. And I would just tell them, here's my expectations. I expect you to learn how to do X, Y, Z. And then I would like for you to demonstrate that knowledge.
When I worked at the restaurant, Sandy, it was either you did what I told you to, or you scrubbed the baseboards for the
That's one way. Oh my goodness. Restaurants can be interesting places to work. You have all kinds of personalities. And my goodness, that's not even talking about customers. So any other questions in our group?
I don't see any hands or any Q&A.
Okay. Well, with that, I'll just thank you for your time and attention, and thank you, Christopher, for facilitating the class.